Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. Still falling within our trend channel, although as you can see we kicked out of it just a little bit here, fell back, and now we're rallying. If we can get through this upper band of the trend channel, we may make a run for it. Wanted to point out a couple of things here. Down here on the MACD, you can see that I've drawn some pennant lines on here so you can tell what they are, but we've got, this is what I call a pennant on the MACD. Normally the MACD rolls over or V's over. Those are your two typical patterns that you see. There's a nice roll over. Here's a V or a V. Here it is a little bit different. It's more of a pennant. You go straight up and then you come up to meet it. These tend to resolve to the upside. They don't roll over like normal ones, from what I've observed. I've outlined another one here that we had. You can see that we had more of a pennant in the MACD and we shot up. Actually a significant price move from 26 all the way to 29, 26.5 to 29, a $3 price move. That one resulted in. If this one does a similar thing, then we're talking all the way up in here, and of course that's going to reset the other MACD that we're looking at, which is the daily. The daily is just starting to come around here, getting near across. It still can go lower. You don't have too many of those. You can see you had one here. It crossed, then flipped over lower, then it rallied, then turned up and rallied. But for the most part, if it crosses to the upside, we tend to move to the upside. So that's pretty bullish. The last one I showed you is pretty bullish. The only thing that's really bearish is the weekly. It's still in a significant overbought position, but just a little bit of sideways price action can actually reload this one. The other ones took a long time. You can see we had one here, and one here. This one took almost 2 years. This one took a little bit less, and then this one took almost 2 years as well. So they can take a long time. It doesn't mean we can't go higher from here. It would mean if we do go higher, we're talking about a parabolic. As some have speculated, if we draw these trend lines here, we can see our parabolic tops seem to be matching. Close. We're above it a little bit maybe. But that doesn't mean we can't go higher, which would mean, you know, if we had a big curve up and away, say a move towards 50. If we look back from a move towards 50, it would look back to something like this. So at the time this appeared to be a parabolic spike and you're going to crash, but now we can see that it really was just kind of a plateau here, just building, and then it took off. So you always have to look back in the perspective percentage wise, and it can look very parabolic, but in hindsight, when you look back, it's just kind of a platform to take off. Want to look at oil chart real quick here. We do seem to be attempting to break out. As you know, the news out of the Middle East, Egypt, and those other nations, it created quite a spike. The MACD seems to be, we have a little, looks like we're going to cross over to the upside here on this one. It's hard to say at this point. It looks very strong. You can see it went from 85 and it rallied right up to 92. We've had the predictions. I think Lindsey Williams and both Jimmy Rogers have been predicting $150 to $200 oil. If we have a Suez crisis, that could easily occur. If oil goes that way, what happens to silver relatively? Well, silver tends to it tends to move with oil. So let's do an oil silver cross, and when we go out to the long term, the cross doesn't tend to hold that well, but in the short term, especially with this recent spike, the cross has been holding up pretty well. Looks like NetDania is having a little problem on their site. So we're on the 5 minute. Let's start way out and then move in. If we go out all the way out to the weekly, that's when we get the spike where oil spiked all the way up to 150 and then crashed down to 35, and silver kind of mirrored it, and it doesn't look like we're having some serious problems on NetDania's site right now loading the data, so I might not be able to do each one of these graphs. They're just the data is not loading. But anyway, the cross is pretty tight between silver and oil, and if we're looking at let's pull up something better. We can pull up our oil chart on Yahoo, and we can, well, that's strange, they don't give you a long-term chart. We can pull up a there we go. Now the SLV doesn't go that far out, so yeah, and it's not going to let us do that. So we could do an oil ETF, USO, which we probably will have to do. There's the SLV. So let's pull up the USO. Okay, and so there's our daily comparison. There's a 5-day, tracking pretty nicely. Year to date, 1 month, 3 month. That's a very tight correlation. That's a 80 to 90% correlation. Not so tight here. You can see that in the 6 month, the rally in silver has really exceeded anything in oil. As we go farther out here, we can see it just has never caught up. Now, part of this is due to the ETF nature of USO, but it's still significantly below. So you can see that oil and silver tracked really close. They broke apart. They started tracking again, and so now in the in the present, they're tracking awfully tight. So we'll have to wait and see if we get back to the NetDania. If we get a breakout in the oil and we make that move that some are expecting above 150, is silver going to follow? What price projection does that give us? Remember, oil's already been at 150 and then crashed, yet silver is in new highs, so silver seems to be stronger. We'll just have to wait and see. It could move in the opposite direction. So we'll talk to you tomorrow.